Good day, everyone. My name is Chaabouni. On behalf of Microsoft Technology, I want to welcome you to our Salesforce and Summit Technologies webinar, Economic Development with Salesforce Government Solutions and Summit Technologies Economic Development Accelerator. And with that, I want to turn it over to today's moderator, Moez Chaabouni.
Thank you, Giovanni, and good morning, good day, everybody. Thank you for joining us today for our series of webinars, but this is the first one for this year. Our agenda today revolves around economic development and all things economic development, specifically fueled and enabled by CRM and Salesforce CRM. We'll do a round of introductions, and then we'll dive right into the reason for CRM and in economic development. And we'll dive into the CRM components as well as how we can leverage CRM and its different ways of focus on customer 360 to be able to collaborate with other government agencies as well as NGOs and partners in the community. And then we'll turn it over to a Q&A. So next slide, please. With us today, we have some esteemed colleagues, and I will turn it over to each of them to introduce themselves. Steve Davis, please.
Hey, good morning, everyone. My name is Steve Davis, Vice President of Strategic Partnerships and Initiatives with the St. Louis Development Corporation.
Thank you, Steve. Lou?
Good morning, everyone. I'm Lou Zacharilla. I'm the co-founder of the Intelligent Community Forum. We're a think tank that studies how to accelerate communities' growth around the world. Thanks for having me, Moez.
Thank you, Lou. Taylor?
How's it going, everyone? I'm Taylor Doyle, a consultant here at Summit Technologies. Been in the Salesforce ecosystem now over 3 years and 7-time Salesforce certified consultant.
Thank you, Taylor. Connor?
Good morning, everyone. Connor Uni. I'm our public sector account executive here at Salesforce, supporting local government. I've been with Salesforce for just about 3.5 years now.
Fantastic. Thank you, Connor. And I am Moez Chaabouni. I'm a co-founder and managing partner of Summit Technologies. We are a Salesforce implementation partner. We're exclusive Salesforce. And I also serve as the chairman of the jurors for the Intelligent Community Forum with my friend and colleague, Lou Zacharilla. So thank you all for joining us today. We have a great topic, and I can't wait to dive right into it. So next slide, please. Let's do it.
If anyone out there wants to read this, I'll shorten this and I won't read it in full. But to summarize, Salesforce is a publicly traded company. Just make your purchasing decisions off readily available information today.
Thank you, Connor. Let's jump right into the introduction of the different organizations being represented today. So we will start with Steve Davis in St. Louis. Steve, can you tell us a little bit about St. Louis Development Corp?
Yeah, no, thanks again for the opportunity to share about the work that the St. Louis Development Corporation is doing. So again, we're a 501c4 quasi-public-private entity, the independent economic development agency for the city of St. Louis. And what we do, we help promote development and job growth through tools and support in our community that help businesses prosper here. So again, appreciate the opportunity today to share about all the important work that we do with Salesforce. Thanks.
Next slide.
So if you know anything about St. Louis, our history has been developed by historical policies and racial covenants that have really impacted half of our population. So in 2022, we released what's called the Economic Justice Action Plan, which is really our strategy and guiding document as far as how we drive economic development in the city of St. Louis and deploy resources in communities that have historically been disinvested in. So through that work, we have our work's driven by really 3 pillars, which is equitable and inclusive development, neighborhood transformation, and economic empowerment. And under those 3 pillars, we ultimately have 5 goals. The first goal being strengthen the neighborhoods, the second goal, closing the wealth gap, the third goal, improving health and educational outcomes, and the fourth goal, expanding the tax base, and lastly, growing the population here in St. Louis. Next slide, please. So 3 years ago, when I first started at SLDC, we didn't have any really front door to track projects or manage the project. So that's when we reached out to Salesforce so we could be more transparent about the work that we do. Obviously, we talk about in government all the time how we need to break down silos and get different departments talking to each other. So what Salesforce has done for us, it's really helped us improve the data workflows, tracking the projects that we're working on more efficiently, less siloed work between different departments. So whether it's the city land bank, land clearance for utilization, our neighborhood transformation managers, all the information is being stored in one place and it's easily accessible to the entire organization. And it makes it easier for us to be transparent with the public. And the platform itself makes it easiest for us to manage the workload with all the different programs and implementations that we're standing up through all the funding that we're receiving through the American Rescue Plan Act. Next slide, please.
Thank you, Stephen. Now, Lou, would you please tell us a little bit about the Intelligent Community Forum and how you play a role in this?
Sure. Thanks, Moez. And thanks, Stephen, for that explanation. We actually work with cities like St. Louis all the time. We're a think tank based in New York City with a global footprint. You know, Moez, as you know, some places are uniquely competent, but ineffective at delivering growth, services, and hope to citizens. So this impacts every aspect of economic and civic life, and we wanted to find out why. And so we took the lessons from The Wizard of Oz, where Dorothy makes the greatest claim anyone can make, which is there's no place like home. Based on that, we decided then to do something about that. We wanted to make every place that a person lives a great place to live. And we started looking at broadband first as the connecting fiber, I guess pun intended. From there, we studied cities that had begun to make a turnaround and found a method through our research that was consistent to all of them, a baseline. So today, the ICF has 200 cities around the world working with a method to accelerate their economic growth and social development. We have 2 institutes, one near Columbus, Ohio in Dublin, and another at a university in Taiwan, which continues to look at our method. We also have national affiliates. But none of this is possible without a platform like Salesforce. I'm not endorsing it, but I do use it, and we do see it everywhere to link and harness the human intelligence that we've been able to unlock. So our success is found in the performance of cities as diverse as Espoo, Finland, Taoyuan, Taiwan, and of course, Columbus, Ohio. So that's our work. We want to make every place that you live a great place to live.
Thank you, Lou. So now, next slide, we're going to turn it over to Connor to tell us a little bit about Salesforce and what they do for economic development.
Thank you, Moez. I think it's funny that we find that Salesforce really enjoys showing this slide and that there's a lot going on. But to keep it at a high level, with the Salesforce Customer 360 platform, you can modernize your government service with the power of a comprehensive suite of apps that help you deliver on your mission. With the Salesforce Customer 360, I want to get through just a couple bullet points here. You're going to be able to create a single source of truth to track all of your customer interactions, use modern engagement tools to connect you with your internal and external customers, and streamline team collaboration with tools like Slack. We also allow our customers to build a powerful data visualization and reports with Tableau, and then connecting data across all of your existing systems within our MuleSoft integration tool. So in short, we know that engagement, trusted data, integrations, analytics, and collaboration are the foundational building blocks for mission-focused applications today. And purpose-built solutions for our public sector help to accelerate modernization goals by giving you a toolkit that is specific to government. All this is delivered from a dedicated cloud environment that allows you to move quickly without compromising compliance. And with point-and-click configuration, we empower you to tailor your applications while AI-powered automation tools are baked right in to help you remain fast and agile. Next slide, please. And I'll just to add a little bit more flavor to about why Salesforce as a platform. So Salesforce for industry cloud solutions are purpose-built for the public sector. And again, they are mission specific. Our customers often ask why industry cloud solutions are the right choice. And it's because when compared to traditional solutions, which require a lot of customization to meet your requirements and therefore has a longer time to value, we found that industry cloud solutions provide purpose-built data models and processes, which in turn provides more features out of the box that allow you to deploy faster, which in turn shortens that time to value. Additionally, traditional solutions require higher effort for upgrades because you need to make sure that all of your custom code is working properly. And then industry cloud solutions also are future-proof because they're driven by regular upgrades that are seamlessly delivered to your deployment. All the customization that you can do on traditional solutions will make your department and internal IT teams for even smaller changes bogged down, while industry clouds provide a vast ecosystem that support your business units to make changes based on their mission-specific requirements. And lastly, just to underscore the importance of industry cloud solutions, we have done the research to find that 57% of our respondents believe that software that's built specifically for government agencies is crucial to reduce their costs and generate revenue. Next slide, please. So today, in this webinar, I think we're focused specifically around economic development and their teams and their specific missions. Although I like to highlight with Salesforce Public Sector Industry Solutions, you have the richest portfolio of CRM applications designed for government and many mission-specific use cases. Salesforce as a company has been rapidly building out government-specific capabilities since 2008, and we're pleased to offer and share design solutions not only for economic development teams, but also public safety programs, licensing and permitting management, 311, and many other government use cases, as you can see here. In summary, Salesforce serves as a single source of truth and system of record to manage any business process internally, cross-departmentally, or externally with your citizens and your stakeholders. Next slide.
Thank you, Connor. I think we're going to keep going back to this whole concept of customer 360 and single source of truth throughout the day today, because that is probably one of the most important topics, and one that is central to a CRM implementation, specifically, like the one we're talking about. A brief intro about Summit Technologies, which, like I said, I am the co-founder and a managing partner. We have been a Salesforce implementation partner for a solid 8 years now, with over 800 projects completed, about 240 plus clients. We do quite a bit of government work, but interestingly enough, we do quite a bit of economic development work, and dozens and dozens of implementations. All we do is Salesforce, and the government space is one of our vertical focuses. Higher ed is another one, and of course, commercial is a third vertical. We do a little bit of nonprofit work as well, especially like as it does bleed into government space quite a bit. There are common missions between nonprofits and governments and social work and some of the things you're going to see. So we do quite a bit of that, and this is our focus. We're not trying to boil the ocean. We try to do one thing and do it well, and we do Salesforce really well. Next slide, please. Specifically for economic development and some other very focused use cases in the government space, we have developed some IP, we call them accelerators, because our investment is everyone's gain. Our investment is basically through many implementations, we have found that there are common threads, and the common threads would account for about 80% of the requirements of, in this case, any economic development corp or economic development department. And those common threads, we package them together, we create an accelerator, and it captures the typical things that you would expect: projects, programs, campaigns and nurturing, enriching the data, automation of the workflows, email templates, incentives, grants, offers, compliance, BREs, and of course, last but not least is the accountability and the KPIs and the dashboards that you need to showcase. All these have been captured in this accelerator, and today you're going to see glimmers of it, a little, a few demo pieces from Taylor. So why the accelerator? It is a productized solution. It gets you there pretty quick, and when we say quick, we really mean quick. It's a lower risk because the solution is nearly there, 70-80% there, just for minor tweaks. And it is totally 100% lower cost because we're not starting from the ground up. So we're super proud of these accelerators, and we have deployed these throughout the country dozens of times and with great success. So that's a little bit about Summit Technologies. And I guess we're going to dive right into the meat of the program. So let's go to the next slide. All right, so here we are. So let's start from the beginning. Why CRM? Why Salesforce CRM for economic development? I would say if I'm a small economic development department and I'm managing my program, I'm perfectly fine doing it by email and spreadsheets and all the tools available to me in the back office. Why would I want to introduce a new technology? What are some of the gains that I should expect? So I'm gonna, this will be a round robin kind of conversation. So I'm gonna turn it over to Lou first, and then Lou, why would anybody want to do a CRM implementation? Why technology right now?
Yeah, right. That's right. Why technology? Well, Moez, if somebody can put the first slide up, and again, I'll take it up couple 100,000 feet here probably compared to what's going on. But the real question is, how do you build a great city, right? Well, there was an old saying that you build a great university and then you wait 200 years. Well, we actually can't afford to wait 200 years anymore. So we need to accelerate the development of our communities. And one of the things that we've found is that you can unlock human intelligence, human potential, which is actually driving innovation, driving the retention, driving the homegrown startup today. And CRM is an important part of that. So the idea that you have these, I hate to use the word platform, but you have these tools to keep the community communicating and to help them understand how modern digital economic development is done is really important. The key, as we know, is not to just go out and retain or bring in a big corporation, right? Because they'll leave given the opportunity or a better place to go. But the key, and I've got a slide where you've got some quotes from Jonathan Safier.
There you go.
Yeah. Well, yeah, there's SpongeBob there. He's dying waiting for a great city to be built. The next slide, please. As I said, we found a faster way to build a city, and it's really brain gain, creating the environment so that any place that a person calls home can thrive. And again, CRM is really critical to that because that's the modern tool that's being used to develop what we think is the most important part, which is the homegrown business. As I say, you can bring someone in from the outside, you can bring a Boeing in or whatever, but they're not necessarily homegrown. So if we go to that next slide, please. What you're looking for is to create an environment where there is the levels of collaboration, the right digital infrastructure, the right knowledge base, and the confidence to go out and to create these clusters, whether it's agricultural, whether it's technological, whether it's service-oriented, so that these communities can re-identify themselves and continue to grow. And that's what our accelerator method is all about. I put up this slide of, this is a satellite flyby of the Korean Peninsula. And it's obvious, right? You look at South Korea, where we have several intelligent communities, and what do you see? You see a place thriving. And they're doing all the things that my colleagues earlier, and you, Moez, were talking about. They collaborate. They built these ecosystems for themselves. in their different cities. So you see Seoul, you see Busan, you see Suwon, you see all these places lit up at night. You go north, where none of this has been even approached. And what do you see? You see one little light there. And I always kid people and I say, you know, what is that? And it's really, I always say it's the New York Mets looking for a world championship, but it's really not. It's the capital of North Korea, but the rest of the place is in darkness. Well, interestingly enough, that's how we need to look at our communities today. There's those with CRM that are using it properly and those without it. And it's really just a matter of using the right tool to, again, to unlock human intelligence. I mean, that's the only natural resource that's endless, doesn't pollute the sky, doesn't pollute the water, but that continues to thrive and to create great economic output. More importantly, great social development so that the young people want to stay home and that people want to come in there to live. I mean, you guys did that in Columbus. They do it, as I say, in Dublin. They've done it in most of our 200 intelligent communities. And so CRM is a real important part of that. So I think that's why you need it, so that you don't end up looking like North Korea.
So thank you, Lou. I think it's a great segue to hear from our colleague Stephen Davis and what they did and why they picked, CRM, specifically Salesforce, of course, to fuel their economic development program. And so Steve, you want to share with us why did you guys do this?
Yeah, I mean, looking back a couple of years ago, if you wanted to do business in the city of St. Louis, it was difficult to know where to start. So what we really wanted to do was create that digital front door and one-stop shop portal that had all the information, whether you're a resident, trying to start a small business, or a developer with a larger scale project, had all the information in one consistent place. Because 3 years ago, there was no consistent process for doing a deal. Institutional knowledge lived with various employees. So, you may not know the right person to go to. And I hate to say it, it's not even a joke. St. Louis City Hall got rid of its last typewriter last year. So, that's how far we have to go to, get into the digital age. But again, it's creating that one singular digital front door to start your project. And then it also helps us create a clear, concise process from A to Z, from the evaluation of the project to the first and second readings as it goes through the Board of Aldermen and other various boards for approval. And it makes it easier for people to know where they stand. So instead of having to make 5 or 6 phone calls, they can log into their own profile and see exactly where they are in the process, and not have to go on a wild goose chase trying to track down the information that they're looking for. So it's been an incredibly positive experience for us, and our constituents are not only grateful. Like I said, it makes the process easier for us to manage as well. And it just creates an overall consistency and transparency as we're leveraging incentives to promote business development in the city of St. Louis.
That's fantastic. So I think Taylor has a little something he wants to share with us on, if you were to stand up a fully fueled program through Salesforce CRM, what would a director, a mayor, elected official, city council, all the oversight, what would people expect to see out of the program? So I think we're going to start from the end results and dig a little deeper into each. So Taylor, do you want to share with us a little bit of what would a program look like to the evaluator?
Thank you, Moez. I'll share my screen now. Let me get that up. All right, we can see my screen, correct?
Yes.
Perfect. All right. So what we have here is our economic development accelerator that we have curated at Summit Technologies through dozens and dozens of implementations of this accelerator for our various clients. What we're seeing here is an overview of the economic development overview. So we're seeing potential jobs at risk. So an admin in the back office, I can see jobs that we have at risk. I can see committed retained jobs. So commitments from the organizations that we're working with and the and for a second. So I could see those retained jobs that are being committed. I could see the potential new jobs that organizations may be bringing into our community. I could see the potential investment from organizations, whether they're in our community currently, and its potential investment from retention, or its potential investment from organizations coming into our community. I can see that at a holistic view here with this dashboard that comes pre-built with our accelerator. And as I go down more, I can see more information into like new jobs by year. I can see investments that are being made by the year. You can see commitments by investment, committed investment by industry. I can see open projects by industry. Projects would be what the field, what the agent in the field are really focused on, the projects with the various organizations. And I'll dig into that more as we go on in the segments coming up. But here we can keep track of all the information here with this economic development overview dashboard. And then next we're going to go into the retention dashboard here. So here with this retention dashboard, as an admin in the back office, I'm able to see commitments that have been verified this year. So if an organization is making commitments to us, maybe we're giving them a certain incentive and they've made a commitment to us for that incentive, I can see which commitments we have verified from those organizations making those. I can also see which commitments are needing verification still, or which organizations missed their commitments. So that maybe gives me insight into what organizations we need to touch upon a little more. Maybe we need to do more BREs with those organizations that are currently in our community and maybe missed their commitments. So that gives us insight into which ones we may want to talk to more and reach out to more. And then additionally, we have BREs that we have performed this year, so we can see how many we have done and then how many we have not done in the last year. So we know maybe we need to start focusing in on BREs, so those business retention and expansion surveys. Maybe we need to be performing those more with our current organizations in our community to make sure everything is going well with them, as well as those new organizations that would be coming into our community. And then lastly, we have a prospecting dashboard. This is giving us insight into those agents that are working in the field. So they're bringing in leads, those potential new prospects that may want to expand into our community or relocate their organization into our community. This dashboard is showing us those potential prospects by the source in which they came in from, whether it's company direct or a trade show. We can see what source those are coming in from. We can also see which agent is working leads. I can see that Dustin has 160 leads he's working, so I can gain insight into who's working a certain amount of leads, as well as the projects here, so we can gain insight into which projects these agents in the field are working. If I can see that Dustin has one project in offer letter sent, whereas Summit has multiple projects in various stages, and we'll dive into more of those projects and how we're getting that data again in the next upcoming segments from these demos. And then lastly, I want to drill into a report and just show how, or drill into a dashboard and show how we can see what is making up those KPIs of these dashboards. So I drilled into the number 4 of projects by stage. And what that is showing me is I can drill into those individual projects that are making up that dashboard at that certain stage. I can see I have 4 in needs analysis. I can see exactly which organizations those are, what the project is that we're working at that stage, and then the information of those projects. And we can add more information to these reports. This is customizable. These are those little tweaks that Moez was talking about, whereas 70–80% of this is built, but we can make those little tweaks to add information here or customize the dashboard a little bit more to tailor your specific process. But whereas the majority of our accelerator would work for most economic development agency processes. And with that, I will turn it back over for the next segment.
Thank you, Taylor. Really appreciate it. Giovanni, can you put the slide back? Thank you. So next slide, please. Taylor just showed us what you would expect if you have a program stood up, and at a high level, if all the data is in and everybody is working and collaborating, the program should be able to display, and you should be able to gain a clear understanding of your KPIs and the things you need to manage to from different perspectives. The dashboards are user-based, and anybody can create their own depending on what their focus and their interest is. So an elected official is going to have a different perspective than an economic development prospector, or officer making deals. An administrator is going to have a different view. And the key thing here, it's a common data shared among all these different stakeholders, but how does the data get there? That's probably the biggest question. Instead of it being siloed in a spreadsheet or an email or scattered all over the place and everybody has their own little view, now we have a centralized repository of all this data. So now we're going to dig a little deeper and understand the different components that make up a good economic development program. So what are the necessary ingredients for a modern constituent experience? What are the things that we need to focus on? And these are going to be the same business elements that you manage to, except now you're going to see them from the technology aspect. So I'm going to go to Lou first. Lou, economic development. What do we need to manage to? When we talk about capturing data, specifically. I think maybe next slide on this.
Yeah, I have one slide on this, Moez. And again, I think the speakers have covered a lot of the technology piece and how it works. From our perspective, as I mentioned earlier, we've looked at about 200 cities around the world. We've actually looked at a lot more, but 200 have been designated intelligent through our awards program. And the reason we have an awards program is twofold. One is we gather a lot of data when we put out the nomination forms, and they're free to any city. But secondly, when those cities are designated as intelligent, they get a lot of attention from investors and cities or companies rather that want to go in there. I mean, if you have a choice between locating in an intelligent community and one that's, not so intelligent, where are you going to go? But there's a method behind all of this that's evolved over many years, and this is what ultimately serves the citizen. This is what is at the core of, we find, successful economic development in those intelligent communities that we work with. And I'll start from left to right. I'll go counterclockwise. We look at broadband connectivity, the infrastructure. You've got to have the right infrastructure, right? If the train's not running through your town in 1880, you're probably not going to be very competitive economically. Well, obviously, the digital network is key today, and getting that right, getting that investment, getting that out to the homes and businesses is sort of job one. And it can be both fiber and it can be satellite. I grew up in the satellite industry, so we know the power. The educational piece of this, knowledge work, creating a workforce that is doing the type of work that is sufficient to enable someone to make a middle-class living in the 21st century is key. So we need to see cities working at that level. And again, CRM is at the core of all of this. And again, you guys can talk about that far more articulately than I can. Innovation is fundamental. Innovation is really, in many ways, the straw that stirs the drink. If you don't have a process for continuous innovation, if you don't know what the other innovators in your community are doing, and you can't develop the collaboration to allow that to go forward and the systems that allow that to go forward, you're going to be at a loss because things don't stay in place, and they stay in place a lot less now. So we find innovation in both and this is key, both the private sector, where we're very good at it, but I think, especially in North America, but also in the public sector. We're finding now that the governments, like Steve Davis I think it was, of St. Louis, was talking about getting rid of that last typewriter. But local governments now being innovative, thinking about ways to unlock human potential is key. And we never talked about that until about 15 years ago. Going to the top, the sustainability, engaging citizens and improving quality of life. We all want clean air, we all want clean water, but we want to also be sure that we have sustainable environments going out 2 or 3 generations, both physically and economically. And that's what the intelligent community movement is all about, ensuring that places stay vibrant 2 or 3 generations out. I don't know what CRM can do in that regard, but I suspect there's a sneaky suspicion we have that it plays a role. Digital inclusion, it's not just a moral mandate to bring along the least among us. It's also important that we bridge these divides because, again, human talent is fundamental. Social rifts, political rifts, we've seen what happens when those occur, and if they occur at the local level, it can be very corrosive. So digital inclusion, working with libraries, working with educational systems, making sure that, again, we structure a middle class for the 21st century is part of the work that we do. And we're studying how that's been done successfully around the world. And then finally, the community engagement piece of this. We've seen mayors from Winnipeg, Canada to, again, I'll go back to Ohio because I love Ohio, using Zen City platforms and others to sort of measure, take the temperature of people. And again, for us, that's a management exercise that allows partnerships with citizens to evolve because we know now what citizens want. They're very good at this in Taoyuan, in Taiwan. I mean, they've gotten it down to the point where citizens can almost call up their own public bus. I mean, it's very, very robust. And they have a whole concept called citizen first. Every investment they make in CRM, in digital technology, in any type of investment on the private sector side and public sector sides are dedicated to making sure that the citizens' needs are met first. They believe in Taiwan that that's crucial to putting out the message that democracy is what is going to sustain our societies and our economies, again, 2 or 3 generations down the road. So, what St. Louis and others are doing and our 200 communities are doing are putting those blocks in place. So I guess I'll leave it at that, Moez, because those are our nuts and bolts, the ICF method.
Thank you, Lou. Great segue into the conversation because this is exactly it. I mean, some of the things that you have identified are core to Salesforce and CRM. Managing the programs for broadband connectivity and the innovation, making sure that that's a thriving sector and a thriving community, workforce development, and all these are part of managing the customer 360 and the digital inclusion. The EJAP program from St. Louis is at the heart of that. That's economic justice. That's what digital inclusion is all about, is making sure that everybody has at least equal footing to get started. Community engagement is at the heart of what we do, and these are the building blocks, the components of CRM for a thriving community. So, Steve, I want to turn it over to you because you've done this. This is not theoretical anymore. This is real life. So, tell us more how you did this.
Yeah, no, I mean, having Salesforce as a CRM is incredibly important. As I mentioned, through the Economic Justice Action Plan, we're deploying an unprecedented amount of resources into our most underserved neighborhoods in North St. Louis City. We've committed over $286 million in new programs and policies to help create generational wealth where it hasn't existed before. And so being able to track that transformation is incredibly important, and again, to be transparent with our residents and community as to where we're deploying resources and the why behind it. Over a year ago, we stood up what's called the Northside Economic Empowerment Center, which is right in the heart of the Ville neighborhood, which is one of the most famous historically Black neighborhoods in St. Louis. And within 1 year, we've served over 2,000 small businesses, with over half of those being minority and women owned. And so tracking how we're interacting with those businesses and the resources that we're providing them to help them, scale up and legitimize their businesses in the city of St. Louis is incredibly important. We also have deployed neighborhood managers for all of the 88 neighborhoods in St. Louis. Yes, we have a lot of neighborhoods, and so tracking those interactions with residents and seeing what the trends are, what are people, what are their needs, and what are they most interested in learning more about and getting engaged with us on is incredibly important. So to have Salesforce to be able to track those interactions and better inform us on how to do our work most effectively is incredibly important. And then as you see on the screen here, on a larger scale, as we're looking to develop more equitably and inclusively through the Economic Justice Action Plan, we completely revamped our incentives process, as I alluded to earlier. So making sure that we're not investing in, historically what has been the Central Corridor, which is the most vibrant part of the city of St. Louis. How do we make sure that investments are getting driven to places that have not historically been invested in? So we created what's called a community benefit scorecard. So each project is evaluated based on its merit and benefit to the community, which will determine the length and term of the incentive that you may receive. And so all that flows through this developer portal that we work with Summit Technologies on Salesforce on developing. And again, it just creates a more consistent and transparent process that not only works for developers, but it ensures trust to the public that we are developing equitably and inclusively.
That's fantastic.
Yep.
I believe, next slide, please.
And so this is just an example of, the type of metrics that we track. And so this does feed out into a public facing dashboard that you'll see here in a minute. But again, we want to know where the investments are happening and where do we need to drive the investment, right? So leveraging dashboards to keep, our leadership team informed and the staff at large is incredibly important. So again, very, very simple dashboard, but it gives you kind of a snapshot of the activity that's happening in the city of St. Louis. So next slide.
That's amazing. That's fascinating. I mean, this is all about community engagement. And you have it right there available for everybody to see. I mean, you have the data and you have the metrics, you have the KPIs, transparency at its best. I mean, this is fascinating and fantastic. Great work. Great work. I think Taylor is going to share with us a little bit about the major building blocks of where all this data resides. Because it's one thing to see it like this in a summary format, but it's like, well, how did this get built? So Taylor, do you want to show us a little bit about the different components of this CRM behind the scenes?
Yes, thank you. I'm going to share my screen again. Share that. All right. Can you guys see my screen?
Yep.
Perfect. So now what we're going to dive into now is how those dashboards are being made up with the different data. So what we're looking at currently is a project. These projects are, again, what the agents in the field are going to be really focused on, but the back office admin can see those stats for these different projects. And at the project level, we're storing information such as the incentives that have been awarded to the specific project or the potential investment that this project would bring to our community. We also have, so if we go down more potential investment section, we also have where we can keep that investment information from the project, like what real estate investment they're going to be giving, what training investment. We also have potential employment impact, the new jobs or potential, the new or full-time jobs, part-time jobs. We keep that information here at the project level as well. And the needs and requirements for the specific project that we're working. And also, if they're looking for a site, for example, we can store that information at the project level so we can know what the organization that may be coming into our community is looking for a specific building. And then we can also track the funds requested and awarded for that specific project, as well as the commitments and then what has been verified for the project. So what commitments the organization is making to us, and then what we've verified for those commitments we can track at the project level. Then at the top here, we have status bars. We can actually see the different stages that the project goes to, and we can move that along as we are working with projects. So say we're in a site search stage, they're looking for a potential building in our community. We can move that to the next stage, and then we can keep tracking that as we go on. And on the right-hand side here, we have incentives, commitments, and offers. And incentives are going to be those the amounts that the organizations are requesting. Commitments are going to be the commitments that the organization are giving to us for that for those funds. So they're giving us a certain commitment. They're saying we're going to give you, say, 400 new jobs for $10 million of this incentive that I'm looking at. And then lastly, we have the offer. If it gets to that point, we can create offers to send to the organizations. That would be a way to stay true or keep the organizations true to what they're offering for those commitments. And we'll dive into those offers here in a second. So first we have the incentives. So sorry about that. So first we have the incentives. We can track the incentives, also like the project, through different statuses as you see at the top. So we can track as that goes along. And as we can see, these incentives are also tied to projects. So we can track what projects these incentives are to. And then we also track the awarded amount and other amounts for that incentive. And then next we have commitments. These commitments are what the organizations are committing to us. We can see the committed investment, the committed new jobs, and then we also can see when we verify this commitment, what was verified, what investment was verified, did they hit that number? Were the new jobs that they were committing, were those created? Did they actually hit those numbers? We can go back and we can create those commitment verifications right here, and we can verify where they're at with those commitments when we have that verification due date. And then lastly, we're going to go into an offer. When we get to that stage of the project, we can send out an offer to the organization that really solidifies the commitments they're giving to us for the incentive that we're giving to them. And again, we can track that incentive or that offer through the different stages as needs review, interview, all the way up to accepted or denied. And we also track the information on the left-hand side, such as what project this is tied to, what organization this offer is tied to, as well as who it's prepared for, and the address that would be associated to the offer. And then on the right-hand side, we also can see those incentives and commitments that this offer is tied to as well. And then lastly, we can create a PDF to send to that organization for them to sign. So we can create that little contract where it says who's preparing it, who it's prepared for, and then showing that incentive and commitment that they're saying they're going to be giving us for commitments, and we're giving them that incentive, and they can see that, and we can hold them true, saying you sign this. These are the commitments and incentives that were talked about, and then we can save it, and it shows up on this offer record, and we can have historical versions of those offers as we create them. And now I'm going to switch it back over to Moez.
Thank you, Taylor. So as you can see, we can talk about the necessary programs, and then we can talk about how impactful. And at the end of the day, all that when it hits the ground, it has to be captured somewhere. And obviously, Salesforce, the CRM, the capabilities are endless. You can capture your entire program and all the nuts and bolts of how you run an economic development program through this tool, and also through the solution that gives you the ability to share the data, which actually takes me into the next topic. Giovanni, if you don't mind, the next slide, please. So it's all about data sharing. It's collaboration. If we're going to serve the community at scale, we need a single source of truth. You hear that quite often. And data sharing can happen, of course, cross-department for efficiency. So, the next person knows what the person across the hall is working with or working at. We can, talk about data sharing in terms of transparency and collaborating and communicating with the constituents. In this case, for St. Louis, and Steve's going to talk about this, how they manage their developer network and being able to offer them a way to interact. And then finally, probably one of the biggest ones is sharing data with other agencies or other NGOs, non-government organizations, or private sector for that matter. It's the ability to send data back and forth. So, Lou, I think ICF has termed the concept of a triple helix. Can you, next slide, and can you share with that what that means?
Sure. This one's, pretty straightforward. We have, again, experienced, and this concept actually comes both from Canada and Holland. But the idea is that in order to have the kind of economic development programs that are necessary, the local government, the private sector, and the academic or innovative sector need to find a method to collaborate structurally, right? And they call it the triple helix because they're creating fundamentally a new DNA for economic development and the management and growth of cities. So we say digitize, collaborate, and develop, right? Because those are the three fundamental components. So what you've got now is this new DNA at work, but you need to continue to communicate among these three very, very disparate sectors. Anybody who's been inside a city, as you have, as Stephen has, as some of the others watching us have, know that it's really, really hard. But it is fundamental to success. And again, we've got example after example. I have to tell you, though, collaboration is key here. I remember the first time we went to Tallinn, Estonia, which has probably the most robust cybersecurity program on earth. I mean, they're always defending themselves against the Russians, hackers, for one thing. But I walked into a city council meeting and I didn't see one piece of paper. This is 15, 16 years ago, right? All I saw were terminal or laptops. And they had gone digital very, very quickly. They were collaborating with other departments through the city council, and they had it so worked out that it was working to perfection. Tallinn, Estonia, if you've ever been there, is one of the most effective cities in Europe. They've been one of our intelligent communities of the year. I go to another place, and I won't name it because I've been to several cities like this, and of course they want to show off their collaboration to me because I'm evaluating them for intelligent community status and all the other stuff we do. And I'll go into a meeting and there'll be like, 20 people sitting around, and they'll have told me before what great collaborators they are. And I walk into the meeting and they're handing each other business cards. They don't know each other. So so you have to immediately, you don't have to be too sharp to say, well, wait a minute, how much can these folks collaborate if they're just really fundamentally meeting each other, department to department? So the triple helix is not only fundamental to one sector, to the local government, but in terms of economic development and growth, it's really, really important to the whole specter of both local and regional growth. And again, that's the hot stuff that's happening. We're beginning to see this, for example, in the rural communities, where you've got now entire regions, the Durham region in Canada, where you've got 6 very dispersed communities collaborating, using these platforms that we've been talking about today to propel themselves into literally global economic development status. So I think that's the question you asked. So
yes. And this, thank you, Lou. Steve, you've done this. I mean, so this is why St. Louis is a thriving community, because I think you guys have cracked this formula on bringing all the partners to the table. So tell us a little more, and how were you able to get to this level of collaboration with, hopefully with the help of Salesforce and CRM?
No, absolutely. And if you've been in economic development, you know that it's a team sport, right? So we have to actively work with our partners to engage our businesses and residents to meet their needs. So I'll rewind a bit to 2020 at the risk of bringing up the time before, which But obviously in 2020, we had to deal with the pandemic, and then the way that we operated obviously changed, right? And so St. Louis and our economic development agencies from the local level all the way up to the state level formed a task force for business retention and expansion. So it was a group of that consisted of the St. Louis Development Corporation, our partners that operate at the county level, the St. Louis Economic Development Partnership, the state of Missouri Department of Economic Development, and then even our utilities like Ameren and Spire, so electric and natural gas. We all came together at the table virtually at the time because we couldn't meet in person, and say, how do we make sure that we're getting to our businesses and addressing the rapidly changing environment that's occurring. And so for the past 4 years now, which is hard to believe, that core group, we've met once a week to discuss our business retention strategy in St. Louis, and we created a targeted outreach list to our most important employers, but also being intentional about reaching out to our MWBE firms and, making sure that we're taking care of businesses large and small. And so since then, we've met on average with 2 companies a week, just as a check-in to say, hey, how are things going? What are your needs? Obviously, workforce is a huge topic today, and figure out how we can assist them to make sure they could stay in place and grow in St. Louis, or even if there was an opportunity to expand, help support those projects. Again, it was an incredibly useful exercise, and again, economic development's a team sport, and I'm pleased to say that this group was actually recognized this past year by the International Economic Development Council for excellence in business retention and expansion. And the reason it was so successful is because we were able to track the data and the meetings that we were having through Salesforce. And I think maybe I'm getting ahead of myself, Moez, and may have a slide on this later. But sharing our notes and information in one common place, so we were all on the same page and knew what was happening in our community, was incredibly important. And then on the slide here that you see, leveraging Salesforce maps to see where the projects are happening in St. Louis. So you'll see kind of a colorful overlay. That's what we call the Economic Justice Index, so directly related to the Economic Justice Action Plan. So when we created that document, we actually indexed the whole city based on the highest opportunity and need. So the yellow you see there is called the Economic Justice Index 1. So those are the most highly distressed areas in the city of St. Louis, in the areas where we're directing the majority of our resources to make sure that people have the opportunity to thrive, and they have access to wealth building opportunities and pathways to good wealth sustaining jobs. And so this is something that we can take to the public and say, hey, here we're delivering on the promises that we made, laid out in the Economic Justice Action Plan. These are where the projects are happening. Here are the types of projects that are happening. So it all goes back to transparency and building that public trust based on the work that we do. So again, from top to bottom, it's a team sport, and we all have to work together. And having a common CRM that we all operate off of is a crucial piece to that.
That's fantastic. Thank you, Steve. And in typical fashion, we are going to go over, and I hope the audience can stay with us. For those of you who cannot, and you have to drop off at the top of the hour, which is right now, please, if you have a question, submit it, and we will make sure we get it answered. And know that you will have a recording. So if you have a question and you want to make sure you get an answer to it, we'll gladly answer it. But I'm hoping that the vast majority of you can stick around for a few more minutes as we will wrap this up here in a few minutes. Taylor, I believe you have some opportunities to share with us, the power of portals and how you can share data with constituents as well as business partners. This is something specific also to St. Louis that you guys have been working with and have done. So can you do that for us?
Yeah. First, I'm gonna share my screen. First, I'm gonna touch upon programs and then BREs, and then we're gonna go into quickly go into those different portal screenshots from SLDC. So to start, in Salesforce, we have programs. These programs are what those incentives and commitments are being tied from. As we can see here, we have an income tax offset program. This program has a program funding of 50 million. That's just a record that would be created. We would be funding those programs with those program fundings, as we can see the different incentives that this program has been tied to. So we can keep track of who is requesting these different funds from the specific program we're looking at. And then we can keep track of the information like who's the program provider, program description, restrictions and conditions, and then the funding of the program, what's been awarded and what has been requested as well. So we can keep track of all of that here through this program record. And then next, we want to go over BREs, so those business retention and expansion surveys. We want to make sure that we are continuing to talk to the organizations in our community and make sure that they're doing well, and that if they need anything, we can help them out, as Steve was saying. So we can easily go to an organization, and with our Accelerator, we have built the ability to easily create a BRE right from that organization that you're talking to. So even if you're, say, on the road and you meet somebody, you could do this right from your phone easily. So you can find the organization with through the Salesforce app, and then you can create this BRE record. We go through it. We can say what their projected growth percentage over the next year is, how the rate of the business health is, what the likelihood of expansion is, if their facility is meeting current needs, and then the likelihood of retention. And we keep track of the employee data too at the organization that we're talking to. We can see how many are full-time and how many are part-time that are local, and if there's any contract employees. We can add any notes and comments, and then we can save that BRE. And now we've created a BRE for that organization that we're currently talking to, so business retention and expansion survey. And then we can see that BRE record after it's created right here on the organization level. So we can easily go to that tab and see that new BRE record. And then we can click into that record, and that gives us more information that we can fill out for that BRE. So we filled out with kind of a small subset of information that we thought would be the most important information to collect quickly. Then you can dive into the record and add more information as you're talking to them. And then, so lastly, I want to transition to those screenshots of the portal from SLDC and just talk about these and how SLDC, so St. Louis, they are using the partner portal to interact with their partners and get the data from inside Salesforce out to them so they can see that. Again, they have that partner portal login that Steve was showing before, where the partners can log in, or where they can sign up and sign up for the partner portal and get that login. Then they have the ability to then see any information. So St. Louis can give them information, any updates, and they can come into the portal and see those updates easily. And then next we have the ability to see properties. These properties would be coming from Salesforce. This is data that we're storing in Salesforce on the Salesforce platform, but we can see it from a portal. We can see what properties may be available. And then from there, we can see any, so say I'm a potential organization, I want to move to St. Louis, I want to expand there, I can see what properties may be available, and then I can see what incentives that I may want to apply for to move my organization to St. Louis. So I can see those incentive projects. And then from there, again, we can see that incentive overview dashboard that Steve was mentioning. And then we can see on the map using Salesforce Maps where those incentive projects are in the community. And then lastly, we can apply for those incentive projects that we're seeing on the portal. So maybe we saw a property we want to go to, and then we saw an incentive we want to apply for, and then we can easily fill out our information, and then that would get sent to St. Louis to then reach out to you once you submit this form.
Mhm.
And then that is it. I'll hand it back over to Moez.
Well, thank you. Great community engagement tool. I'm sure you're getting, quite a bit of good feedback and quite a bit of interactions, and with you leveraging the power of technology. There was another thing, Steve, that you guys did with St. Louis partnership, and that is sharing BRE information. Also, can you elaborate a little bit on that and how that's going for you?
Yeah, so I kind of alluded to that a little bit earlier. So the St. Louis Economic Development Partnership is essentially our sister agency. So again, if you're familiar with St. Louis, you have city proper, which is really the territory that the St. Louis Development Corporation covers, and then you have the greater St. Louis region, and so there's St. Louis County, which is a separate entity. And so the Economic Development Partnership, they not only represent the county for economic development, but they also do work in the city with us and partner with us on projects as well. And so it was very important that we had a direct way to share information. So as we're meeting with companies, and it may not even be at the same time, but as we're entering the information and the data that we receive back from that company, that it populates in a common place. So we worked with Summit Technologies on the Salesforce to Salesforce connection. So when we do the business retention expansion meetings now, whenever someone enters the recap of that meeting or the information that was received, it is available to both SLEDP, so the Economic Development Partnership, and the St. Louis Development Corporation. So there's no miscommunication or misunderstanding if one piece of information was channeled through SLEDP and not SLDC or vice versa. So it eliminates confusion. It helps us work better together on retaining and even attracting businesses. Again, because we're working on that common platform, and we're working transparently to represent the city and the county. So that was really important.
That's fantastic, and that is each of you have your own Salesforce implementation. They do as well, but you share data from one implementation to another, and that's really fantastic. Next slide, please. I think this is the full presentation. I think, Giovanni, it's fair now to open it for questions and answers, and if there are any questions from the audience, we'd love to take them.
Awesome. Thank you, Moez. Yes, so we did go over a little bit over on today's webinar. So if you do have a question, please add them to the Q&A pod now, or we will share your contact information here soon. So, with that, thank you, everybody. Thank you for joining. So that wraps up our event for today. I will now launch a final polling question for the audience here. Please take a moment to answer the polling question displayed on your screen. And I want to thank all of our speakers and Steve Davis from the St. Louis Development Corporation for your insights today. And I want to thank all of our participants for joining us today as well. We hope this information was helpful to you and your organization. Our contact information is displayed on the screen, so please do not hesitate to reach out to us if you have any questions. And you will also receive a slide of today's presentation with contact information as well as additional links for you to review after today's webinar. Now, again, I want to thank everybody for joining us, and this concludes today's webinar. And then, Moez, any final words?
No, I want to thank our panelists and colleagues, Lou Zacharilla, Stephen Davis, Connor, who had unfortunately drop off because of the timing, Taylor, Elizabeth, thank you all. And of course, you, Giovanni, thank you for hosting us. Really appreciate it. And I hope this was beneficial to our audience.
Awesome. Again, thank you for joining.
Thank you, everyone.
Webinar.